Todd Monken walked into that press conference in Cleveland and said everything without saying everything. What happened in that room was not routine. It was not a standard media availability. It was a declaration from a man who has spent 35 years grinding through the NFL as an assistant, waiting for his shot, and who now, finally in charge, has made one thing crystal clear. He is not going to be pushed around by anyone. Not the media. Not the league. Not ownership. Nobody. Let's start with the media, because that relationship tells you everything about where this Cleveland Browns organization is heading. Todd Monken does not rock with the Cleveland media. That is not speculation. That is not reading between the lines. That is observable reality captured on camera for everyone to see. The reporters in that room came prepared with carefully crafted questions designed to generate controversy, and Monken responded with answers that made them look foolish. When they tried to corner him about missing the NFL head coach's photo, he didn't deflect with corporate language. He told the truth. I was just trying to get a sweet haircut. I mean, that's what I was trying to do. And then they moved the meeting. That one answer dismantled the entire setup. He wasn't absent because of arrogance. He wasn't absent because of disorganization. He went to the barber because he wanted to look right for the most important photo of his career, and the NFL moved the meeting without making sure he knew. When they pushed further and asked if it was disappointing, he didn't sugarcoat it. Bet your ass it was disappointing. Waited my whole life to be a head coach. I'm not in the head coach's picture. That is a man who understands exactly what was taken from him in that moment. 35 years of dues paid. 35 years of coaching under other people's names, building other people's offenses, watching other people get credit. And when his moment finally arrived, the official photo that marks his entry into the fraternity of NFL head coaches, the league took it without him. They did not wait. They moved on. That is not a scheduling miscommunication. That is a statement about how much the NFL values the Cleveland Browns and the man running them. Monken also handled the change the narrative question with the same no-nonsense precision. When a reporter asked how Cleveland could stop being seen as a franchise where everything goes wrong, his answer was direct: winning. What changes everything? Right. How does a player stop a narrative? Play well. How do we stop a narrative on offense? Score. How do they stop a narrative of winning? Win. It's pretty freaking simple, right? There is no spin in that answer. There is no media management. That is a coach who has already decided that results will do the talking, and he has zero interest in playing the public relations game in the meantime. Now let's talk about Shedeur Sanders, because this is where the story becomes much larger than one press conference. Before Shedeur Sanders arrived in Cleveland, the Browns were hemorrhaging relevance. They were losing fans to apathy and becoming an afterthought in a league that rewards star power and marketability. Sanders changed that almost overnight. He brought genuine hope backed by genuine talent. A quarterback who dominated at Colorado, carried himself with elite confidence, and arrived with the kind of profile that transforms franchises. But here is the part the NFL has to answer for. Shedeur Sanders sat through 5 rounds of the NFL draft before his name was called. 5 rounds. A quarterback with his production, his presence, and his pedigree watched round after round go by while organizations selected players who will not have a fraction of his impact. Whether that reflects legitimate organizational concerns or pure institutional cowardice, the result is the same. The NFL sent a message to Shedeur Sanders and to the Cleveland Browns about where they stand in the league's hierarchy of importance. Todd Monken noticed. He took mental notes. And he is not going to forget. The quarterback situation in Cleveland right now is genuinely one of the most interesting stories in the NFL. At the press conference, Monken said something that very few people expected. There's enough there of all three. I mean, there's enough there to really like the way Shedeur played at the back end of the year, and there's enough early in the year from Dylan that is playing the position at a very high level. Dylan Gabriel, a name almost nobody was discussing as a legitimate starter, was placed by Monken in the same conversation as Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson. That is not an accident. Monken runs an open competition. He does not hand out starting jobs based on narrative or expectation. Every quarterback on that roster is going to have to earn it. The Watson situation remains the most complicated variable. Watson is still on the roster. He still carries enormous financial implications for the organization. He represents one of the most divisive figures in recent NFL history. Managing that dynamic while simultaneously developing a rookie quarterback and installing a new culture requires a specific kind of leadership. the kind that does not flinch, does not play favorites, and does not let external noise dictate internal decisions. Monken appears to be exactly that kind of leader. Which brings us to Jimmy Haslam. The Cleveland Browns have cycled through coaches and front office executives at a rate that is almost impossible to justify. The pattern is well documented. Haslam has a history of involvement in football decisions that extends beyond what most owners engage in, and more than a few departures from this franchise have been linked, at least partially, to ownership dynamics. The instability is not accidental. It is the product of an environment where the head coach has never truly been the final authority. Todd Monken did not spend 35 years waiting for his opportunity to arrive and then hand control of it to someone else. The energy he projected at that press conference, the refusal to be managed, the directness, the obvious comfort in his own skin, is the energy of a man who negotiated his terms and intends to hold the line on them. Whether Haslam is prepared to honor that arrangement is the question that will define this entire era of Browns football. What is observable right now is that Monken is not behaving like a man who fears ownership interference. Here is the uncomfortable reality that Cleveland fans need to sit with. There is a credible theory, not confirmed, but not dismissible, that Todd Monken may not view Cleveland as his final destination. The same uncertainty exists around Shedeur Sanders himself. Both men may be approaching this situation pragmatically. Come in, perform, build something real, and then evaluate options based on whether the organization can sustain what they're trying to build. If Cleveland gets its act together and becomes a stable, well-run franchise, they stay. If the dysfunction that has defined this organization for decades persists, they have both proven what they are capable of and can move forward accordingly. That is not betrayal. That is how professionals operate in an industry with no guaranteed outcomes. Sometimes the person who starts the rebuilding process is not the person who finishes it, and that does not make their contribution any less real or valuable. What today's press conference made undeniable is this: the Cleveland Browns now have a head coach who refuses to accept disrespect as a condition of the job. The NFL took that photo without him. The league let his quarterback slide to the 5th round. The local media is trying to generate controversy at his expense. And Monken is responding to every single one of those situations with the kind of grounded, unshakable defiance that either builds dynasties or accelerates exits. The media battles signal he is protecting his message. The photo response signals he understands exactly what the league thinks of Cleveland and is not pretending otherwise. The open quarterback competition signals there will be no entitlement in his building. The ownership dynamic signals a power structure that is being renegotiated in real time. It'll be under the bridge. And what'll matter most is how we move from here, and do we win or not. That ultimately none of that will matter. Todd Monken is standing on business. Cleveland is about to find out what that actually looks like when the season begins.